All right, you're listening to 91.5 WUML Lowell. It's my honor and pleasure to have Stu Cutler with me today. Hello, Stu.
Hi there, John. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. So let's
My
talk
pleasure.
let's talk about your beginnings in the music business. You,
Okay.
you started out as a kid playing with, of all people, ZZ Hill. Not many people know that.
Yeah, that was my first road gig was with ZZ Hill. I was pretty young, and I think when we spoke earlier, I've got a bunch of funny stories about that.
Well, go
But
ahead. Let's talk about the funny stories. How's
well,
that?
well, I- at this time I was living in Buffalo, New York, and I was part of a little group run by a bass player named Herman Young, a little bit of a mentor to me. And it was me, Herman, and a drummer named Abdul Rahman Kadir. And Herman was a real veteran. He'd been with Buddy Guy, been with BB King, he'd done a lot of stuff. And Abdul and I were basically kids. And so we get this gig, and the first thing is neither Abdul or I had been on a plane before. So we get on the airplane to fly. I forget where, so long ago, but we're terrified, and Herman's looking at us like, "What's wrong with you guys?" So we got over that, and ZZ Hill would sometimes run out of gas on some of these gigs, right? So, late at night, you'd be doing a song, and maybe there'd be like a little two-chord vamp, right? So
Yeah.
it'd be like da 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 dum dum da 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 da, right? And this would go on for a while, and every now and then he would go, "Well," just like that. And of course, the two of us, not being the most professional of people at the time, a couple of times we just really lost it on stage. And I have this memory of one of these gigs just being like bent over and looking at him as like just couldn't even stand up anymore. And of course, very unprofessional to do that. This guy was, a famous singer. He had like a million selling record out, and here are these two kids, cracking up on stage. But
That hey,
that's what happened.
that's it, right? That's what happens. You
Oh
can't
yeah,
change that.
can't change it. No, nope,
So
nope.
after ZZ Hill,
Hmm.
when did you decide to become a professional musician? Was that after
Well,
after that or when?
well, I guess I thought I was a professional musician before that, but looking back at how I was acting, that's debatable. Um,
No,
I
I mean
was,
in your own words. When did you really think that you were finally
you know, uh, I think some years later, I did some interesting things, some very interesting things in between ZZ Hill and getting to New York. But once I was in New York and realized that I really wanted to do this and make this my career, I had to start taking things a little more seriously, trying to. I remember, breaking out a calendar and start, logging in the gigs that I had and stuff like this, and et cetera, et cetera. And I had done a bunch of interesting things before that, but my attitude, I hadn't really matured enough to take it seriously the way I needed to. So, you know,
well, there's some great names in your little bio of people that you played with. I was like blown away at some of it.
yeah, somebody had to a young lady named Virginia Buckley. uh, who I think is going to try to help me get some work. But she was on me to sort of update the bio and make it a little more cohesive. So I've actually had to read it a little bit myself recently, which uh, it's a little odd to read. I most of that stuff I didn't write. It's
Hmm.
different people contributed to it. So it's a little odd being like in the third person there reading about yourself, but I'm a little amazed at it too, that I've done all this stuff.
Well, I mean, it covers blues, it covers jazz, it covers country. I mean,
Yeah,
there's all kinds in rock too. Meatloaf. I was like, huh?
that
Tell
was
tell me about that.
that was a quick experience, but it was cool. There's a drummer. You remember the group Mountain?
Yeah,
There's a drummer I knew, a guy named Corky Lang, right?
yeah,
And was playing in a little band with him. Kind of some rock stars. Harvey Brooks, who was a good friend, was in it. Lester Chambers was in and out of it. Mick Taylor was even there for a minute. So he gets this gig with Meatloaf, or I guess it was Corky's gig.
yeah.
And Meatloaf's regular guitar player was not around, so I had to learn a bunch of his stuff. And we played this big concert. Where was it? Up in Westport, Connecticut. It's years ago, and
Yep.
I was kind of surprised how really good Meatloaf's band was, and I tried to stick with it, but I remember the bass player telling me, "Well, you're a little bit of a jazzer," so I didn't last too long, but I did have the experience, and it was cool.
Yeah, and Harvey. Tell me about him. I know about him.
Well,
Played with
Harvey,
Dylan and
yeah,
a bunch of people.
Harvey's done a lot of stuff, and going from Buffalo when I just felt like I had just exhausted the possibilities there, even though Buffalo's a wonderful place to live. Uh, I was thinking about moving back to New York, but I wasn't too thrilled about it. And in a roundabout way, I got hooked up with Harvey and ended up moving to Woodstock for about 2 years. Actually lived at his house for a little while with him. And I learned a lot from Harvey. But, I also, I could really, play jazz and play standards, and he wanted to get better at that. So that was good. But Harvey was a great mentor, really. And more than anything on the personal side, right around then is when my father contacted me. And him being a bit older than me, I guess maybe I was around 25 and he was, I think, late 30s or maybe early 40s, which at that time to me seemed old. He really guided me through meeting my dad. And, I don't know how I would have handled that without him. So, besides all the music that we played together, uh, that's a big thing with Harvey. We went on later on to have a band with Lester Chambers from the Chambers Brothers,
Yep.
and we worked in and around the Northeast. We worked constantly. We never really did get a chance to get a recording out in the world. The band broke up kind of in a weird way, like it just sort of would take almost the rest of this interview to explain it, but just briefly, somebody booked us a tour that it was just made up. I mean, to this day, I really don't understand what was going on with all that, but it broke the band up, which was unfortunate. But that was something really great that I was in on. And then, I at that point I had moved back down to New York, and I found myself, okay, now back in the city, and I'm a guitar player, and I've got I'm not in this band that works all the time, and I've got to figure out how to make this work. Uh, I mean, also at that time, when I did move down to New York, in Buffalo, I was playing with folks like Bobby Previte and Eliot Sharp, and a good friend named Peter Piccirilli, who uh, not a name you might know, but when I came down to the city, I immediately got hooked up with a guy named Wayne Horvitz, who had a band at that time called The President that ended up doing very well. Harvey and Lester sort of, it got so busy, it drew me out of that downtown scene.
Yep.
That's what they called that. And what was difficult was when the band with Harvey and Lester just disintegrated out of the blue, and I just found myself floundering around. I actually became a phys ed teacher for about a year and a half.
Yep.
But after that, I realized I was going to have to go back to school if I wanted to do that and get a master's degree, and that did not appeal to me at all. And I still really wanted to play music. And one of the first things I did to get back is I took a job as a guitar teacher in a music store in the Bronx, which is where I was living at the time. And right around then, Wayne and Bobby and Eliot and all these people were starting to get a lot of press and getting successful. So, I'd be in this little music store and they'd have, Downbeat, and there's an article about the president, or, Contemporary Keyboard, there's a big article about Wayne and all that. So, that was hard.
Yep.
That was tough. But at the same time, none of those guys forgot about me. And I ended up somehow getting back in the group, The President. Never at the right time was I in that band. But like the other guitar players were Eliot, Bill Frisell,
Wow.
Dave Tronzo, so that's the company that was there. And Bobby ended up calling me back for some things. And I also went to work with Wayne's wife, Robin Holcomb, who was a wonderful singer-songwriter and a great sort of improviser, piano player. And I did one of her recordings, and we went on tour, and I did a lot of traveling with the president and made some records. And Wayne would get some producing gigs, and he would use me, and did a few records with Bobby and some traveling with him too. So it ended up coming around for me. But that was a little bit of a tough moment there for me.
Yeah, another blues artist that I saw in your bio was Earl King. Not many people know who he is.
Yeah, Earl King. Somebody actually out of that downtown scene somehow put this concert together, and it was Earl King, and he hired me too. And I guess we did a couple of gigs, but Earl was very cool. He didn't mind having another guitar player on the gig at all, and was a very nice guy. I wanted to help him, show him how to string his guitar a little bit better, because he would have some tuning issues. But Earl wrote a lot of great music, and he was a very nice guy and a very good guitar player. I think he wrote "Let the Good Times Roll," that I believe Hendrix covered that. Am I correct?
I think so.
Yeah, yeah. So he was cool, very cool.
And then I saw Alexis P. Suter, who I've done an interview with.
Okay,
She's something
that's
else too.
yeah, that's something a little more recently. And
Yeah.
Alexis is she's up there with the nicer people that you're going to meet in this business. She's an extremely nice person, and is a wonderful, soulful singer, and at least once a night she would burst into tears, and it was not an act. It was completely heartfelt, and I enjoyed my time there with them very, very much.
How long ago was that?
Not that long ago, maybe around 2 years ago, something like that.
Wow.
3 years ago. I'm not good with that kind of thing.
The other person that was interesting when I saw it was Wilson Pickett. I didn't realize that.
Well, that for me, I had done this tour. It was called Summer Soul. It's a long time ago. Summer Soul '89. That was the tour, and there was a house band, and I was playing in back of both Eddie Floyd and Percy Sledge. And on the bill was Wilson Pickett, and he seemed to be like a little bit of somebody that how do I put this nicely? You didn't want to necessarily want to go out of your way to interact with him. He had just had some sort of huge fight with some German guy, or
So it
just
wasn't a good night, put it that way.
well, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't the thing. But really, the thing about wanting to do that gig was that at that time, his band leader was a guitar player named Skip Pitts, who you probably haven't heard of.
Nope.
Now, Skip is the wah-wah guitar player on Shaft, and also he's the guitar player on It's Your Thing. And Skip was cool. He was a nice guy. So, I got to do a couple of gigs. I probably, looking back, maybe I should have tried to make an effort to kind of stay there a little bit longer than I did, but I got the experience. But for me, the thing was to play with Skip. That's really what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And he was cool. The whole band was from DC at that time, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah. I got a lot of stories, like I told you.
Well, this other one is a rock guy that when I was doing radio in the late '70s, early '80s. He had a whole bunch of records that we were playing on the radio. Garland Jeffries. No one knows who he is.
Yeah. Garland, where I live in New York, Garland lives in this apartment complex. And I got to meet, he's a very personable, very nice guy. Did a few gigs with him, but the business thing, this is a business, and I wasn't really liking the way that was going, as nice a guy as he was and all that. So, it was more like a handful of gigs. We rehearsed a couple of times, but he, I believe, is in pretty poor health right now.
Ah.
Yeah, I saw him maybe about 6 months ago, and he didn't look too good. So
He wrote some great songs though on those records that he had.
yeah. I know his music. What I had to learn for the gigs that I did with him, and I can't tell you I'm an expert on all his stuff.
Yeah.
I'd be lying if I said I was.
Well, let's talk about the Harlem gospel singers and your little trips to Europe.
All right. Well, I'm going to backtrack a little bit.
Yep.
And getting back to being a sort of at heart like a jazz and blues player. Some years before I auditioned for the Harlem Gospel Singers, I auditioned for a singer-songwriter named Lisa Loeb.
Oh, I know who that is.
Yeah, and it came down to between me and one other guy, right? Now, when I went down to these auditions, I would tell myself, do not play jazz, play pop guitar, okay? So it came down to me, and I didn't even know who the other guy is. But he ended up getting the gig because they felt like he had a little bit of a jazz background, and that would be a good
Wow,
thing.
you did yourself in, huh?
Right. So,
I mean, you have the jazz background. You would think that you'd be the guy that would get it.
yeah, but I guess I did such a good job
Job
of
of not
playing pop
not doing it
guitar for
right.
her. So when I auditioned for the Harlem Gospel Singers, I had learned my lesson of, go to audition, just be yourself. It's either going to work or not. And they actually auditioned something like, I think it was 110 guitar players. And I ended up getting the gig. Just a little bit of a miracle. And did their tour off and on for really more than a decade, I believe. The lead singer, Queen Estamaro, was absolutely incredible. The musical director, Anthony Evans, another just brilliant. The producer, Roseanne Kirk, was brilliant. Great band. Uh, we started moonlighting a little bit overseas, though, as a background, a backup band for some other artists. That didn't go over real well. So I was out of the loop there for a year or two, but I did end up getting brought back in. And also prior to that, in terms of playing gospel, and this was interesting for me, Wayne Horvitz, getting back to him, he got a gig through None Such Records, who I used to play on a lot of their records, producing Fontella Bass. You know who Fontella Bass
Yep.
is?
Yep.
So she's really, she's known for Rescue Me and all that stuff, but she's really a gospel singer. And that was my first really deep dive into gospel music. And what was really great for me on that record was Wayne allowed me to get some of the musicians. So I got Harvey to play bass, as well as Gary Brewer to play drums. But having Wayne and Harvey there, it was a tremendous comfort zone for me. And that record did get Grammy nominated. It's called No Ways Tired. And I do a lot of playing on there. David Sanborn played, Lester Bowie played, a lot of folks played on that.
Let's talk about Every Sunday Night, the record that I found you from.
Okay. Okay.
That's a great record, by the way.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, uh, in New York, at that time, I was doing a lot of gigs at a place called Arthur's Tavern in New York City in Greenwich Village. And I inherited Sunday night. And for me, it was a big opportunity. Now, just in terms of getting my band together and the music at that point that I wanted to do. So you have a weekly gig that I could get my guys on, try out new music, write music, develop the whole thing. When we started the gig, Sunday nights there were incredibly dead. I mean, there'd be like, one person there, and I could tell you some stories, but we'll talk about some of this stuff off the air because I
All right.
can't tell you. I can't
But
say all this
it
stuff on
must
the
have
radio.
gotten better because you recorded a
Yeah,
record
yeah,
there.
yeah. Well, we did that. Actually, I recorded that at Rich Gaglia's studio out in Queens, and but we just sort of went in and played live, just like how we did
Yep.
on the gig. And uh, most of the music on that recording I wrote. We do one or two covers. I feel we do a great cover of "When Something's Wrong with My Baby," and I had both Bobby Harden and J.T. Bowen singing together, and that came out really great. Uh, we did a really nice version of a song of mine called "The Grindstone." I think I called it "The Grind" on every Sunday night. Uh,
That's a great song, by the way.
yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm proud of that one. And a lot of other stuff, and I got most of the guys in my band at that time to play on it, and it was great. And I got a lot of reviews and a fair amount of airplay. A little bit of noise. It made a little bit of noise.
And then just, well, not recently, but you have been doing soundtrack work too. I saw.
Yeah, I've done that off and on throughout the years. I've always, how do I put this? Yeah, I was never, in the heyday of when people were doing recordings, when musicians were, working as session musicians in New York, there were, a certain amount of guys, a handful of guys that were really in, like the guys that were doing, 3 or 4 sessions every day. They'd be working for a big jingle house and have
Yep.
this connection, that connection. I never quite had it like that, but it was always kind of a slow and steady thing for me. And even after all that went away, I still really just up until pretty recently, uh, I always stayed somewhat busy recording. I'm on a gazillion jingles and movie soundtracks, and I mean, The Irishman is one because it's recent, but there's a bunch of other ones. It's a big blur. Uh, uh, so many things. I got funny stories about that too. So uh, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, a good friend of mine, Stuart Lerman, uh, called me, and he had a Super Bowl jingle, right? So I guess that's about as good as you can do in the jingle world. So we went and we recorded this thing. It was, really just not that big a deal. And he goes, cut. That's what he calls me. We've known each other since we're kids.
Yeah.
Just go in there and just put something on there that you hear. So I went in and I put like a wah wah guitar part on. And I come out and everybody's like all excited. People are patting me on the back. Oh, that wah wah guitar part. Oh my God, blah, 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 blah. So, you know, uh, I had been playing on these things off and on for years, and I was always happy for the work. But it wasn't like I was, calling friends and family to say, watch out for the Blue Dog food commercial. That's me on acoustic guitar. I wouldn't say anything to anybody. It was a gig, and I was glad for it. And
But all of those add up. Think about that.
yeah, it adds up. But what's funny about this one is that because it was a Super Bowl commercial,
Yeah.
I called my cousin in California and said, "Hey, Sandy, when you watch the Super Bowl, I think it was a Toyota commercial. Such and such a commercial is going to come on, and when you hear that wah wah guitar, that's me." Okay, so sure enough, uh, the commercial comes on, it plays, no wah wah guitar.
Oh, they took it out.
They erased the wah wah guitar, and it bothered me. I'll be honest, it bothered me for about a half an hour. And then I was like, look, maybe the part stuck out too much. I don't know what. But, who knows what these people spent on this commercial? Do they want people thinking about, oh, who was that guitar player? Or do they want people looking at their cars? So, jingles are cool. It's a gig. I mean, it's not like making a record or playing a
Yep.
concert or something like that. It's something different. It's a job in music.
Yeah.
So
Hey,
anyway.
a lot of people that can do it because it's a little extra money too on the side.
Oh yeah, yeah. There was some of these things over the years have paid pretty well. There was I remember some years ago there was a some commercials. I think it was Ford, genuine Ford parts, and I spent about 45 minutes in the studio recording all this stuff, and they kept playing. You know, it was on national TV all the time, and all this. I made some money off of that for 45 minutes work.
There you
Now
go.
that doesn't happen every day, but
No,
it
but
did happen then. So
it does happen sometimes.
it does happen sometimes. It doesn't really even out to where it's fair, but a little bit at least.
So your last release, Blues from Another Angle. You had a friend of mine on that record,
Who?
James Montgomery.
Oh, James, that's right. Now I met James for about 3 years. I was the guitar player for the Shabu All Stars.
Ah,
You know who the Shabu All
yeah, I
Stars
do.
are? You
Yep.
know, with Lefty Foster and a lot of people. Harvey was in that too. Another great bass player, Charles Calmise. Um, who else can I name drop in there? So many great people were in and out of that. I'm bound to leave somebody out. For a little while, it was a guitar band with myself and Matt Guitar Murphy.
Yep.
That was Matt is a great guitar player, boy. Playing guitar with him every night was a workout. It was great. But James would occasionally do some gigs with us, and that's where I got to know James, a great guy. And I had had some success on a record I did previously called "So Many Streams."
Yeah, I like that one too. That was another one.
Yeah, and I had a few different people. Jeb Loy Nichols, who at that time was doing well as a singer songwriter. In fact, I was doing his tour at that time. I got Eliot Sharp. Actually, Matt was supposed to play on that, but Matt had had a stroke.
Oh,
So I was trying to repeat the idea of that. So there's one song I got James to play on, and he sounds amazing. And another song I got Mike Stern to play on, and he played great too.
yeah. I just heard his new album. It's great. Mike Stern
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
great
I
guitar
haven't
player.
have not checked that out yet, but I will.
Yeah, he's real good. He's been around a long time too.
Yeah, he has, and somebody that I was working with at that time, Roy Holland, had managed Mike for a little while, and I knew Mike from playing at the 55 bar anyway. He played there all the time, and I played there all the time, so I knew him a little bit. Super nice guy, great guitar player, all that good stuff.
And rumor has it you have a new one coming out in 2025, or you're working on one.
Well, I there's a kind of a couple of things brewing. There's a recording that, like a sort of an archival recording that somebody dug up from a spot that I've played at, and I still play at occasionally, called the Bop Shop up in Rochester, New York. Now, some years ago, I had a trio with myself, Booker King, and Gary Brewer. And it's more of the side of me, uh, more, excuse me, improvised music and stuff like that. Some blues based stuff. But they found this recording, and the recording itself is, the quality of it is wonderful. And so it just got mastered by a guy named Matt Guarneri. I hope I'm saying Matt's last name
Yeah.
right. And I do got to mention Tom Cohn, that runs the Bop Shop. Thanks to him. So we're going to try to get this out sometime this year. And also, I'm just starting to make some plans to do some recording with the current group that I have. So if everything goes really well, I may actually put 2 recordings out into the world this year.
Wow.
We'll see how that goes, though.
Well, one will be that was recorded a while ago, which you
Yeah, it
said
was from
sounds great.
yeah, it was from '03. I think I sent you one of those tracks.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
And
That
then
is that tune. That's the most blues based thing there. That tune. You ever hear this song called "She's All Right" by Muddy Waters?
yeah.
Yeah. There's something happens with that song. It almost like 2 time signatures at once or something like that. So I took a little bit of that and I did a Delta blues. I turned it into a Delta blues, but not the Mississippi Delta. Either I call it East River Delta, but
Yeah.
it might be like the Ganges Delta. That might even be more accurate for that tune. I'm losing my train of thought now. I'm
That's all
sorry.
right. That's all right.
Yeah.
So tell me, how do people find out about you? You have a website?
I do have a website. I want to mention some of the gigs that I got
Yeah, go ahead.
coming up. I'll be at the City Gallery in Erie on April 4th, Con Alma in Pittsburgh on the 5th on April 5th, the Tree Lawn in Cleveland on April 6th. Also, I still play at Arthur's Tavern every Friday night. Winnie's Lounge, I play there pretty frequently. That's a really nice spot in Midtown Manhattan. I believe my next gig there is on the 20th. I had written some of this stuff down. Some other places I play, the Pausa Art House up in Buffalo, which I like, the Music Exchange out in Pennsylvania. Uh, I'm sure I'm forgetting a whole bunch of stuff,
That's
but
all right. You got
you
you,
know,
you you've covered most of it. The recent stuff that's coming.
yeah, yeah, I'm trying to be organized,
That's
which is
good.
not, yeah, well,
So
it's
the website is
www.stucutler.com, and my name is spelled Stew.
W, right? Like
Yeah, not
Stewart,
Stu,
right?
not Stu. I spell it the proper way.
STEW.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah,
Facebook or any of the
yeah.
social
I have
media.
a Facebook page. I guess I got about 8 or 9 thousand followers on my Facebook page. I kind of have like a personal Facebook page and
Yep.
a guitar player Facebook page. You know, social media is like a kind of a necessary evil, I guess, at this point, or if you want to look at it that way. I'm not a huge fan of it, but you got to deal with it. I do Instagram too. I'm on Instagram also. Um, not that good at Instagram, but I'm maybe somebody can help me out with that. Um, and there's so many videos of me of every kind on YouTube. I sort of have my own YouTube channel, but there's just so much stuff on me. If you put my name in YouTube, it's
People that don't know your music, you blend blues and jazz and other types of genres of music in your playing. You can hear it in your
yeah.
playing.
It's I mean, it just is what it is. I don't know if it's the greatest thing from a business standpoint. I've been kind of told by people like, all right, say I have a record store, where in the record store do I put this? And if there's really more than one section in the record store, that might not be good business wise. But I think it's from my career as a sideman and as a session player, having played so many different genres of music, that in my own writing, you know, uh, when you go in and say you're doing I don't know, pick a genre. You're
Well, you
doing
can.
that.
Here's the thing: you can play any genre. That's the thing. You hear it. I can hear it in your music.
Yeah, I kind of can.
Yeah, yeah, you can, and you're very good at all of them. That's the
Thank
thing,
you. Thank you.
and I can hear that in the music. It's like it's not blues sometimes. It's more jazz, and then sometimes it's more blues than it is jazz,
Okay.
and then you can hear a little bit of country in
That's
the
cool.
picking that you play too, a little bit.
You know, uh, the mentality of a session musician, say you're going in to do a recording with, say it's a Brazilian singer and you have to play nylon string guitar,
Yeah,
and that's a specific thing, and there's certain notes, certain sounds that you can go for, and certain sounds that are not going to work for
yeah.
that genre. And in my own writing, I just kind of throw all of that out. So whatever comes through comes through.
Well, I'll
Uh,
tell you that story you just talked about trying not to be yourself and play what you think is they're gonna want, and it didn't work. That's pretty funny when you think about that.
it was very funny, and it's a good lesson to learn. And if anybody, any younger musicians, or really anybody in the arts that's auditioning, you might as well just be yourself from the
Right.
start, because even if you can fake your way into the gig, they're going to figure out who you really are anyway. So you might as well start right there. And
I mean, you fit into smooth jazz, you fit into regular jazz, you fit into blues, you fit into all kinds of things. That's what I liked about it, is the variety of
thank you.
what you've done.
Thank you, John.
So anyway, I won't keep you any longer. I just wanted to say thank you for taking some time out and talking about your career and where you're going.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's always, you know, it's my pleasure. I'm always flattered to do an interview, and I appreciate you asking me to do this. And yeah,
Well, I
thank you.
was fascinated, when I started reading the bio and all the stuff, people that you've been connected with over the years. It's like, wow, amazing. I and you have to be, like I tell a lot of my interviewer people that I interview, you have to
Hmm.
be in the right place at the right time for those things to happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. You got to be out doing this. I know there's people that, well, you don't want to do something completely stupid, but
Right.
uh, I'll give you an example. Many years ago, I got called to play a few weddings up in the Bronx with somebody, and I had never really done that before, but I made all this money, and then I got called to do this other gig way downtown in Manhattan, and I knew this gig was going to pay $10, right? But I said, what the heck? I know a lot of the people. It'll be fun. And that gig that I made 10 whole bucks on ended up uh, connecting me up to a 3-week tour of Europe. So being out there doing your thing, you know,
That speaks volumes right there. What
yeah,
you just
yeah,
said.
yeah. So you know, you got to try to keep yourself in circulation a little bit
Yeah.
for any of these things to happen to you.
And you never imagined that a $10 gig would do that, did you? When
No, no.
That's a lesson for people listening, the musicians
Yeah,
listening. You never know.
yeah. Be yourself. I don't necessarily recommend taking a $10 gig, but if you really feel like doing it, go ahead and do it. You never know.
You never know.
Yeah.
Well, Stu, thank you very much. I hope you have a great day,
Thank
and
you.
hopefully, if you ever get into down in Massachusetts to come and play on the show one of these days.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to do that. We'll talk off the air
Okay,
about that. Okay. All
appreciate
right.
it. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it too. Thank you so much,
Have
John.
a great day. Thank you.
Okay, you too.
Okay.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.